Okay, the final item of business this evening is a members' business debate on motion 16194 in the name of Eleanor Whittam on Common Ground Forum for Deer. The debate will be concluded without any questions being put. I'd invite members wishing to participate to press the request to speak buttons. I call on Eleanor Whittam around 7 minutes. Ms Whittam.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer, and thank you to my colleagues from across the Chamber who signed my motion, enabling us to debate and celebrate the award-winning work of the Common Ground Forum, which has been instrumental in giving a collective voice to the deer management sector. This innovative approach has effectively managed conflict and traditionally difficult relationships in order to bring together key stakeholders, including land managers, conservationists and practitioners, to build consensus and common understanding and purpose where possible, with the ultimate aim of promoting a more collaborative approach to upland deer management. And Deputy Presiding Officer, let me tell you, this has been no mean feat. The Common Ground Forum was born out of an approach made by the Association of Deer Management Groups to the Alliance for Scotland's Rainforest in late 2020. And after tentative discussions, it grew and more parties became involved. 50 sceptical but curious protagonists from all sides of the deer sector gathered together for a two-day event facilitated by Civic Mediators, the Centre for Good Relations. And I welcome Abdul Rahim, one of the mentors, to the gallery this evening. A wide range of stakeholders attended, including traditional deer managers, ENGOs from Scottish Environment Link, forestry interests, community groups and academics, plus staff from Nature Scot, Forestry and Land Scotland and the Scottish Government. Deer management in Scotland relies on a collaboration between land managers across often expansive and diverse landscapes. And for decades now, different objectives for land holdings have created tensions, particularly and acutely between sporting and conservation interests. In many instances, unfortunately, this has resulted in broken relationships and conflict. But I'm pleased to say, Deputy Presiding Officer, the Common Ground Forum is tackling this issue head-on. Over those initial few days, it felt to most that whilst resolving the deer management conflict was a long shot, a wee germ of hope that it just might work started to be felt across the board. Confidence has visibly grown in the years since, with clear signs of progress amongst those who have engaged in the Forum's work as word about it has spread. The Forum's focus is now on embedding its approach for more positive relationships for the long term, a process which is actually hoped that will make the Forum obsolete in 3 to 5 years' time. Those involved have seen how it can contribute to a vision of a greener, healthier and economically vibrant future for deer management. The Forum takes no side in the debate about deer and avoids attempting to assess disputes from above or outside. Instead, the sole focus is on enabling the stakeholders themselves to own and transform their relationships with others, so as to build self-sustaining solutions. And this is key to how such forums operate effectively. It isn't about being the arbitrator, it's more about being a facilitator and helping the group to find their common denominators and thus create a collegiate voice that can be amplified. This is hugely important when dealing with complex legislation consultations and enables the group to present to ministers and committees a common purpose and ask. Over 250 stalkers from different backgrounds across Scotland have directly engaged with the process to discuss the future of deer management and make their voices heard in Parliament to help shape the future. Through a series of workshops and events, the Forum has engaged with over 500 people from across the deer sector and related community and land management interests. So far, 148 individuals and 42 organisations have signed up to the Common Ground Accord, which sets out principles for respectful and constructive dialogue. And I think that's a key factor in the success of the group. Capacity building has also been a key strand for the Forum's work. 27 changemakers have been trained in understanding conflict and how to manage it. Deer Management Group chairs have also gathered twice to discuss handling conflict in their role, with a further day-long gatherings scheduled. This approach has been transformative, and we can see real signs of progress at policy and advocacy level, with stakeholders who hold different perspectives and objectives coming together to develop propose joint messages and solutions on shared interests such as venison, deer welfare and funding models. And recent independent evaluation of the process undertaken for a PhD by Callum Levy-Wilson has provided a candid report on progress to date and where relationships might still need to be a wee bit addressed. Deputy Presiding Officer, I first became aware of the Forum when Tim Eagle MSP, who I see in the Chamber today, sponsored a lunchtime event in the Parliament last year. And I must say, I came away enthused and dismayed in equal measures I was blown away by the approach being undertaken, but dismayed that there were not more MSPs in attendance. However, those of us who were there assured the forum members that we valued what they were undertaking, and we were keen to find ways to engage further to hear their take on proposed legislative changes affecting deer management. And I'm glad to say that there's been real signs of progress at a policy and advocacy level, with work undertaken by Scottish Environment Link, the Association of Deer Management Groups, Scottish Gamekeepers Association and Scottish Venison in discussing changes to deer policy with ministers and members of the two relevant parliamentary committees. And this joint advocacy was based on discussions held by the Common Ground Forum on difficult subjects, and I think it's really important to think about those difficult subjects, such as the then proposed changes to the close season for female deer. The shared messaging has focused on shared interest in developing Scotland's venison market, which I think across the Chamber we will all agree we really need to develop that market. The ways in which new regulatory powers are introduced and the funding models that will be essential to delivering government strategy for climate and nature. Currently, the Natural Environment Bill is looking to the deer sector to make changes to deer management to enhance biodiversity and store carbon through peatland and native woodland restoration. And it's in everyone's interest to maintain workable relationships across the deer sector so that management can function effectively in our upland landscapes. This benefit is not just for nature and the natural carbon cycle, but it's going to accelerate and build over time as soils and habitats restore themselves under reduced pressure from browsing animals, with deer being a prominent part of this. However, it's crucial that we remain mindful of the need to protect, if not increase, deer-related jobs in rural communities through the period of change ahead. Whether they're focused on traditional sporting or conservation interests, or both, the skill and dedication of deer managers of all backgrounds are essential to delivering the changes that we need across the country. By bringing these key professionals together, the Common Ground Forum is reducing the conflict affecting these working lives and supporting deer stalkers to co-develop their own solutions to the challenges ahead. And Deputy Presiding Officer, this is an approach that we should champion and support at every turn, including ensuring that it is resourced appropriately. And I would like to hear the Minister say a wee few words about that in his response later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms Whittam. I now call Tim Eagle to be followed by Christine Graham in 4 minutes. Mr Eagle.
Well, thank you, Presiding Officer, and I think you're coming to the end of your long day in the chair, but you've done a great job. Can I thank Elena Whittam for bringing this debate to the Chamber today? Now, one of my very first engagements in this Parliament was with the Common Ground Forum. I had been asked by another member to host as they had another engagement last minute. And I remember feeling slightly nervous as I walked in, having heard of the group, but not having had much involvement before. That nervousness, though, soon left quickly as I found inside the room a wide group of people from various backgrounds, yet all with a shared vision for moving deer management forward in Scotland. And I was very grateful that Elena was in the room with me to help me that day. As the member mentioned, the Common Ground Forum is a collaborative initiative, uniting over 100 stakeholders from Scotland's upland deer management sector. Established in October 2023, it aims to foster mutual respect and consensus building to achieve sustainable and integrated deer management, aligning with Scotland's environmental and rural development goals. The 7 commitments that bring the group together under the Accord work to ensure all are heard, all are listened to, and solutions can be found. It's a great structure, and it has worked. As I understand it, the Common Ground Forum sees that high-quality, sustainable, ecological land has great benefits to our society, from supporting future generations to resilient rural communities. It brings together all those who wish to have positive engagement on how best to manage deer in Scotland. Its successes have shown just what can be achieved when dealing with difficult subject matter and when all are prepared to listen and learn. Its strength has been found in fostering positive debate, understanding and collaboration. Due to these successes, there is arguably a case that the implementation of the new Natural Environment Bill, in whatever form that looks like, could benefit from engagement with this forum in the future. There is the potential to learn from those who work in the area for guidance when developing secondary policy, particularly around areas like a code of practice and register of authorised persons. But also the group could be used to engage and support practitioners in what they need to do to comply with any new changes. And in terms of the group itself, I think there is space to go further. Whilst this group mainly brings together people from the upland deer management context, as I understand it, there is the potential for its expansion to take in more recreational shooters and hear more about the Loban and urban context of management and what challenges it brings. Presiding Officer, can I offer my wholehearted congratulations to all those who have been in, continue to be in, and who have facilitated the group. It is no easy task to talk about deer management in Scotland, but together they are achieving, and politicians across this chamber are listening and learning from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Eagle. I now call on Christine Graham to be followed by Mercedes Vialba. Around 4 minutes. Ms. Graham.
You, Deputy Presiding Officer, but I've certainly had a long afternoon. I congratulate the member on securing this debate. Indeed, some time ago, the cross-party group on animal welfare had an informative briefing on Scotland's deer population and management, and I declare an interest as the convener. There are over 1 million wild deer in Scotland with no natural predator. Wild deer are free-ranging and belong to no one, with the right to take or shoot deer associated with land ownership. So, if you own the land the deer are on, you have a right to shoot those deer. However, red deer may travel large distances in search of food, often covering more than one land ownership. Managing red deer sustainably in the uplands therefore requires collaboration, which has been mentioned, which is made possible by voluntary deer management groups. Nature Scot works with the Association of Deer Management Groups, local deer management groups and others for this deer management. The deer in lowlands and upland areas are predominantly roe deer. They are more solitary, secretive and territorial than red deer, so land ownership patterns are more fragmented in these areas, and managing them is very different from managing the red deer in the uplands. So although deer management across Scotland is a voluntary and collaborative one, Nature Scot does have statutory duties to intervene in specific circumstances. Now, fences are sometimes used to manage deer, for example, for road safety or to protect woodlands in the short term while they are recovering. However, depending on the situation and area, fences are expensive and do not always work. Fences can damage other animals and can simply move a large deer population from one area to another. So, too many deer which do need managed. And I'm not talking about a stereotypical rich foreigner swanning around on a landed estate in his +4s, having a poor beast practically lined up for him to shoot. I'm talking about sensitive, selective culling, in my case for the health of the animals themselves, because gone are the wolves which would have predated on them. It, of course, means the landscape too is protected. The Deer Scotland Act 1996 Act sets out when, where, how and by whom deer can be shot. It also defines the periods of the year when killing of deer is permitted or not permitted. These are known as the open and closed seasons, respectively, and the dates vary according to the deer species. Following consultation, the Scottish Government removed the closed season for male deer of all species in Scotland with effect from 21st October 2023. The Act also requires that only certain specifications of firearms and ammunition can be used to kill deer, to help make sure the deer are shot as humanely as possible. Speaking more broadly on the issue of deer culling, I take no pleasure in deer being culled, but I do unfortunately think we have a situation with the deer population where it is a necessary evil. That 1 million wild deer in Scotland is up from around 500,000 in 1990. This increase in the deer population has led to overgrazing in some areas, which can strip the environments of other species need to thrive. Indeed, the 2023 State of Nature Scotland report found that since monitoring of 407 species of both plant and animal life began in 1994, the abundance of those species has declined on average by 15%, and in the last decade alone, 43% have declined. I'm not saying it's all attributable to the deer, but that's a fact of the decline. It is essential, though, that where culls are necessary, they are done in a way that minimises suffering and takes into account, as I've said, animal welfare. I would, for example, want to see culls undertaken by experienced shooters who are more assured of a quick kill and know how to identify those animals that may be diseased than an inexperienced shooter who would run the risk of maiming. I would also want to see culls restricted to areas where there is evidence that the number of deer is a problem. I understand, indeed, the Deputy Presiding Officer, it's a highly emotive issue, and I support animal welfare, but for me, appropriate culling, appropriately monitored, is about animal welfare, and I hope this provides some context. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call Mercedes Vialba to be followed by Emma Harper. Around 4 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Deputy Presiding Officer. Thank you for calling me to speak for Scottish Labour tonight. I'd like to congratulate Ms Whittam on securing parliamentary time to debate the issue of deer management. We know that effective deer management is vital to meet our goals for woodland management, for carbon sequestration and for habitat health. We know that, according to Nature Scot, an increase in the national cull of 50,000 deer each year will be needed to meet the targets in the Scottish Biodiversity Strategy. And we know that venison is a lean source of protein and a sustainable food source with the potential to contribute to the nutrition of the nation. So it's very welcome that on Jura they're leading the way, where Argyll and Bute Council have launched an initiative to put wild venison on the school menu. But too often, this native wild protein source is not reaching our plates, and this needs to change. There are challenges at every stage of the venison food supply chain, and that, of course, starts with deer management. As we've already heard, the Common Ground Forum brings together a network of individuals committed to a more collaborative approach to deer management. And this forum is a welcome development because, while there have been good examples of coordination of deer management across boundaries in the past, it hasn't been enough, and the deer population seems to be growing out of control. And in some areas, for instance in my own region in the northeast of Scotland, I hear from constituents that on some estates there's a determined unwillingness by an irresponsible few to cull sufficient numbers of deer because of the income that's generated from recreational shooting. But, Deputy Presiding Officer, when those private pursuits are impacting on our public goods, it can't be allowed to continue. Yet, under the current concentrated pattern of land ownership in Scotland, there's very little a community can do to challenge such irresponsible landowners. That's why I believe we need to see these vast estates broken up where it's found that they're not working in the public interest. And this Parliament has an opportunity, through the Scottish Government's Land Reform Bill, to introduce just such a test. And I encourage all members to support that proposal. But, Presiding Officer, deer cull is only the first step in the process of managing deer numbers, because we must also consider what happens to the carcasses. I've heard mixed reviews of attempts to integrate culled deer back into the local ecosystem. And I've heard shocking reports of deer carcasses being buried. So it's all the more commendable to hear of organisations like Fair Feast, who provide a consistent supply of venison to rural food banks across Scotland. Their venison is butchered and packaged on site to maintain the lowest possible carbon footprint. Their mission is to protect the environment by sustainably managing deer and providing for the community through consistent food bank supply. As a nation, we cannot afford to allow venison to go to waste while people are going hungry. Gone are the days when venison was a preserve of the privileged few. Venison is now for the people, as all our commons should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Vialba. I now call Emma Harper to be followed by Ariane Burgess. Around 4 minutes. Ms Harper.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First, I would like to thank Eleanor Whittam for securing this debate, and she has outlined very well how the Common Ground Forum was set up and how it is working. It's very timely, as Rural Committee, which myself and Ms Whittam are members of, is scrutinising the Natural Environment Bill currently, which has one part that specifically focuses on updating the deer management legislation. Deer are a keystone species and they help to shape our ecosystems. Like grazing can keep competitive plant species in check, allowing thriving plant diversity, and microhabitats are created when deer disturb ground with their hooves and then fertilise the soil with their dung. But high density of deer does cause problems, with the Wildlife Trust saying these gentle gardeners can become metaphorical bulldozers. And in my South Scotland region, as with other rural areas, we have a specific Galloway and Dumfriesshire DMG, Deer Management Group. I spoke to their chair yesterday and will meet him and the Vice Chair on Friday to discuss further deer management issues, specifically lowland management needs and the differences compared to highland or upland needs. Like the DMG Chair, I agree that deer management isn't just a rural issue. We have witnessed more deer in peri-urban and even urban areas, causing damage in residential areas and gardens. And of course, there are issues on our local roads when larger fallow deer collide with vehicles, resulting in severe accidents and damage or even writing off vehicles. The local DMG brings together a variety of stakeholders, aiming to ensure the safe and sustainable management of our different species of deer to help address overgrazing, promote biodiversity and a healthy natural environment. Conflict on how we best use and manage the finite resource of land is also often cited. The best interest of conservationists, rewilders and agricultural sector doesn't always mean conflict is inevitable, though. We need a way to manage and resolve those conflicts and bring together everyone who has an interest, and the work of local deer management groups and the National Common Ground Forum that Eleanor Whittam has praised in her motion and her speech is crucial to that holistic approach. One example of joined-up working is happening in Jenny Minto MSP's constituency on Jura, where locally sourced venison is now on the dinner menu at 6 schools on both Jura and Isla. This is an excellent way of reducing food miles and providing healthy, protein-rich meals, which has already been mentioned, and of course free to all students in primary 1 through 5, thanks to the Scottish Government. This is exactly why the Scottish Government is funding projects like the larder and chill facility at Barwhillante near Castle Douglas. The cost of to the Government are relatively small, in this case around £20,000, but the potential benefits to the local community can be huge, reducing the dependence on meat from further afield, reducing waste and keeping spending power within local communities. And it is yet another string to the South's reputation for world-leading food and drink. So I want to see those kinds of projects extended further across the South, and I would urge any estate or anyone involved in deer management to get the ball rolling, get their applications in, and we can see that kind of innovation that is being deployed on Jura rolled out in places like D&G for our school students as well. With capital funding for most pilot projects aimed at developing the infrastructure for venison processing, storage and support, this is what we need for our local communities to turn deer management from a challenge into an opportunity. And that support is also part of the Natural Environment Bill that I mentioned earlier. If passed, the bill will modernise deer management and implement many of the recommendations of the Deer Working Group regarding deer culling at a local and national level. Again, getting the various stakeholders around the table to work together on this issue is key to obtaining a balance and ensuring we promote biodiversity and the natural environment to its fullest extent. And again, I thank Eleanor Whittam and I commend the work being done in this area by the Common Ground Forum.
Thank you. I now call Anne-Anne Burgess to be followed by Kenneth Gibson. Around 4 minutes. Ms Burgess.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Before I begin, I want to apologise to the Chamber and Eleanor Whittam for missing the beginning of Eleanor's contribution. It's been a long day in the chair since 8 o'clock this morning on the Housing Stage 2 bill. But I wouldn't have missed this for anything. I'm absolutely delighted to speak in support of this motion and the recognition of the work of the Common Ground Forum through the Nature of Scotland Award for Innovation. This debate is an important and timely acknowledgement of a quiet but transformative piece of work that has begun to shift the tone and approach within Scotland's upland deer management sector. By bringing together deer managers, conservationists and rural landowners, the Forum has created space for trust, dialogue and shared purpose in one of the most sensitive and contested areas of land use, deer management. And this is not a marginal issue. Effective, ecological, sound deer management is central for our ambitions for nature restoration and climate action. As the Scottish Fiscal Commission has outlined, Scotland will need to spend around £11.5 billion in public investment up to 2050 on land use change and forestry if we are to meet our climate targets. That's significantly more per capita than in the rest of the UK, because we have peatland to restore, we have forests to plant, and we have land under active management, more land under active management. And that means changing the way that we work on the land and doing so in a way that supports those who live and work there. Just as we invest in roads and bridges to connect communities, we must also invest in the soft infrastructure of trust. Forums like the Common Ground Forum that bring people together to share knowledge, build understanding and cooperate on solutions to shared challenges. And I recently had the opportunity to participate in a meeting of the Common Ground Forum. About 80 stalkers, conservationists, estate workers and contractors who came together to speak openly about the need to evolve practices. Many of them work alone, yet the forum creates space for them to exchange information, debunk misinformation and get up to speed with new techniques and technology. And they came together under the Common Ground Accord, which sets a standard for respectful behaviour throughout the upland deer management sector, encouraging participants to keep an open mind, listen to understand, engage honestly, and work towards mutually beneficial solutions. And while upland deer managers benefit from deer management groups, lowland areas, as we've already heard, often lack that structure. So we must do more to support lowland stalkers through local forums, regional coordination and tailored support. We also need to recognise that managing deer for ecological recovery, if we are serious about meeting restoring our degraded natural systems and meeting the target of protecting 30% of Scotland's land for nature by 2030, will require more trained stalkers, not fewer. And that means investing in skilled development and providing structured training routes into the sector. And I would urge the Scottish Government to ensure that wild deer, currently overabundant on our hills, are treated as viable, sustainable sources of protein. Aligning deer management with the aims of the Good Food Nation Act offers the opportunity to put healthy, locally sourced venison on the menu in Scotland's schools, hospitals and other public kitchens. And we've already heard this evening from two members' contributions of the incredible efforts that are coming from the island of Jura and the primary schools in Argyll and Bute. And I want to commend the Centre for Good Relations for the key role it has played in facilitating the forum's work, and to emphasise my belief that this kind of collaborative approach should be core to how the Scottish Government funds rural development. I have had numerous conversations with the Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs about the need to fund soft infrastructure work, and I trust that this debate today demonstrates to her and the Minister the need to act on this. This is about building a nature-positive future that allows rural people to continue to make a living using their skills and knowledge while healing the land that we all depend on. Let's support the forum's approach and expand it to other sectors working with Scotland's land and sea.
Thank you, Ms Burgess. And I call the final speaker in the open debate, Kenneth Gibson, around 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I congratulate my fellow Ayrshire MSP, Elena Whittam, for bringing this important issue of deer management to the Chamber. While imagery of the majestic stag holds a strong cultural significance in Scotland, it's long been a reality that deer numbers are a huge challenge. Woodland regeneration projects struggle without deer-proof fencing, while excessive grazing and trampling of peatland disrupts the growth of peat-forming vegetation and damages soil, hindering the natural carbon storage process, releasing greenhouse gases and destroying habitats that support a distinctive range of species. Given these challenges, I welcome that individuals and organisations, ranging from the Scottish Government, its agencies, national park authorities, to private landowners and managers, gamekeepers bodies, rewilding groups and agriculture, have joined the Common Ground Forum. This initiative improves deer management and is welcome, and the Forum's recent Innovation Award is testament to their excellent work. Gamekeepers are vital too, as is Forestry and Land Scotland, which last year culled 42,500, roughly one-third of the deer shot across Scotland. The reality is that there are still nearly 1 million deer unsustainably causing ecological imbalance. We've already heard about Jura, which incidentally means Deer Island in Old Norse. The elephant in the room remains that adult deer in Scotland have no natural predators. Little Red Riding Hood and the Three Little Pigs have a lot to answer for. Such tales consolidated our centuries-old fear of Europe's apex predator, the wolf. Wiped out in Scotland in the 18th century, in 1720 in Austria, Simon Wind was the last person executed in Europe for being a werewolf. In the preceding 3 centuries, hundreds of others met a similar fate. Europe has matured since these historical times. In Italy, 3,300 wolves and hundreds of packs roam a country with 3 times our population density. Across Europe, only Cyprus, Iceland, Ireland, Malta and the UK have no wolves. In France, where they were eradicated in 1927, there are now around 800. I am not advocating for wolf reintroduction. The Minister would have a heart attack. However, the fact that wolves are widespread in Europe puts into perspective the Scottish Government's timidity and deep conservatism in obstinately refusing to contemplate reintroducing the Eurasian lynx. Whilst not a silver bullet for deer control, with apologies to the late Mr Wind, it should be part of a natural solution to deer sustainability. In the 1990s, as reintroduced lynx expanded into new areas in Switzerland, they encountered dense populations of roe deer with no prior experience of predators. Within 5 years, consistent and highly localised lynx predation significantly reduced these deer populations. The remaining deer became more widely dispersed. Other countries which reintroduced lynx have seen similar benefits. In Scotland, areas with high deer concentrations would see them reduced with declining browsing pressure, benefiting biodiversity and commercial forestry. I urge the Minister to engage with the Links to Scotland Partnership, which organised the national lynx discussion between May and November last year. It found there is sufficient quantity and quality of habitat in Scotland to support a viable lynx population to aid deer control. In Iberia, conservation has seen lynx numbers grow from a critically low 94 to around 1,200, backed by farmers, delighted at the fall in rabbit numbers and the increase in tourists the lynx has brought. While Scottish ministers talk of enhancing biodiversity, their antiquated view regarding lynx reintroduction exposes it as a laggard in such matters, something must urgently address. Presiding Officer, I warmly welcome the Common Ground Forum on Deer, which in a short space of time has tackled decades of conflict that plagued deer management. It's crucial that various interests work together collaboratively to facilitate effective deer management across Scotland. It's nevertheless my firm belief that we can only sustainably control the unnaturally high number of deer by reintroducing to Scotland a native predator which would complement the culling already undertaken. The Eurasian lynx poses no threat to humans and very little to livestock or pets, certainly less than dogs. And evidence abounds across Europe if ministers could be bothered to look at it with an open mind. I urge the Minister to be bold in this regard and engage with the insightful findings of the National Links discussion, and once again thank Elena Whittam for bringing deer management to the Chamber.
Thank you. Having had his blood pressure suitably raised, I call Jim Fairley. Minister, around 7 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I would genuinely like to thank the members who have participated in today's debate. If I've got time, I'll try and get through some of the points that they've raised during the course of the debate, and especially Eleanor Whittam for bringing forward the debate. I think it's a very useful debate to be had in the Parliament. And I also want to take a moment before I get into the detail of the discussion to recognise the excellent work that is carried out every year by our land managers, our gamekeepers and stalkers in managing deer, and also to congratulate the Forum on their award for, in my opinion, proving that even the trickiest of issues can be talked about in a way that actually finds solutions. Sometimes we forget that that's actually an option for us. We are absolutely fortunate in Scotland to have such a wealth of experience and expertise in those who carry out the deer management in a range of quite often challenging circumstances. Now, I was fortunate enough to go out stalking earlier this year on Glenfalloch Estate with those who manage the deer in the estate itself and representatives from the Association of Deer Management Groups. It was an amazing experience. It was a great opportunity to see firsthand some of the excellent deer management that I know is going on right across Scotland. It was also an opportunity to hear from people involved in finding the common ground about the ways it has improved deer management relationships across Scotland. And Eleanor Whittam said earlier on that their hope is that they'll be obsolete in 2 or 3 years. I hope that they're not, because that would allow us to continue to have these continuous engagements about all the issues that we're going to face as we go forward. The deer management is a vital part of land management, and it's carried out for a wide range of purposes that, understandably, there are a very broad range of views of how it's going to be best done. In the past, these differences have caused, or sometimes meant that fractious relationships and a focus on opposing views has been as opposed to that shared common interest of those involved. And I've been incredibly pleased by the work that has been done across the sector to come together through the Common Ground Forum with the support of the Centre for Good Relations to change that, and I very much welcome the Good Relations gentleman here tonight. In December 2024, the Common Ground Forum published a review of their progress, and I want to recognise that I think there are two important pieces of work around that engagement. One of the Common Ground Forum area of focus has been on improving the opportunities for young stalkers and women in stalking to be represented and their views heard. And I know that there is still work to be done there, but I think it's a very important piece of work and one that we should continue doing. And the other piece of work around engagement that I think has been really valuable has been around improving the engagement between government and the stalkers themselves. It is those voices that are most important, but sometimes the least heard. And I'm grateful to the Common Ground Forum for their work on this. I've also been particularly impressed by the work of the Common Ground Forum in focusing on the issues where there is commonality, for example, around venison, where a number of members talk about it. There are shared opportunities to benefit from deer management and to recognise that that resource that we have in wild deer population, regardless why you're managing, is a very good resource that we should have. Venison is one of those excellent opportunities. Happy to.
Finlay Carson.
Thank for the Minister for giving way. Would the Minister join me in congratulating Dumfries and Galloway Health Board, who have been working with Forest and Land Scotland to get wild venison on the menu in their hospital in Dumfries, and congratulate them for being one of the first NHS sites to embrace this sustainable and climate-conscious addition to the diet?
Minister. Absolutely, 100%. I would endorse that, as well as the work that's going on in Argyll and Bute. And there are a number of different things happening right across Scotland where people are starting to get involved. So, my colleague Ariane Burgess mentioned the Good Food Nation Bill. I've kind of gone off script here, so you'll just have to bear with me. You mentioned the Good Food Nation Bill. I've had a meeting very recently talking about how local authorities or local authority food providers can get involved with their local deer managers and find out how they can get venison into schools, into hospitals and any other place that we can actually get this product consumed, because I think that's exactly what we all want to see. Now, we've introduced the reforms to the deer legislation through the National Environment Bill, has been mentioned, but this is just one part of the deer programme. Those changes are important, and the legislation is intended to support our work to tackle the climate and the biodiversity crisis. But I know that legislation alone will not result in the aims that we are trying to achieve. We can only meet those aims if we've got those collective efforts and those skilled deer managers right across the country. I'm very much looking forward to meeting Basque next week to talk about lowland as opposed to highland deer management. I'm going out on another stalking evening. And I get that there is a real issue around. When we talk about deer management, we talk about two different things. There's lowland and there's upland. The highlands, the deer management groups in the highland areas, that's a much more organised, well put together set of people who know exactly what it is they're trying to do. I get there could be conflict, but when there is, that's where the deer management groups come into their own. It's not the same in the lowland parts of Scotland, and we need to find a way to hopefully get a similar model to what we've got with the deer managers that we're talking about just now. And Common Ground, thank you very much. Get a similar model to what's happening with Common Ground and work out how we can get that happening in the lowland parts of Scotland as well, because I think that's a perfect example of good practice. So, as we look forward, I want us to move away from the idea that deer management is a necessary evil. It's certainly not my view. It's instead, I want us to work together both in government and on the... I'll happily take an intervention.
Kenneth Gibson.
Talk about wolves or lynx. I'm just going to ask the Minister whether he supports the export of deer pizzle to places like Taiwan, for example, where it's used as a replacement for tiger penis in soups as a kind of aphrodisiac, which actually, in all seriousness, takes pressure off, for example, India's tiger populations.
Minister.
Every day is a school day. I didn't realise that, and I thank Kenneth Gibson for that nugget of knowledge there that I now can't quite get out of my head, but I welcome the fact that he's given us it. Instead, as I say, I want us to work together both... I'll take an intervention, yeah.
Christine Graham.
Because the Minister used the phrase unnecessary evil, in my speech I said it isn't a necessary evil, it's a welfare issue. And that's why a lot of the conflict between those with animal welfare on one hand and others who wish to do the culling on the other, I think that's been resolved a great deal when we see that it is in the beast's interest as well that it doesn't overpopulate.
Minister.
Christine Graham makes a very good point, and that's exactly the kind of things that will come out of the Common Ground Forum. So the Common Ground Forum has certainly put us in a better place now than we were a few years ago, and I'm very pleased with the work that the Forum and everyone involved was recognised at the Nature of Scotland Wars last year. So I take a great deal of interest in the views of those who do the work every day, and I'm very much looking forward to the opportunities our Common Ground presents to us as we go forward, and I look forward to not having links in Scotland. Thank you very much, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Minister. That concludes the debate, and I close this meeting of Parliament.